Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're a little bit short on the ground, and it looks like we've lost Roger again. We seem to be having a total mare with the system tonight. Roger's having trouble getting on. As you can see, he's frozen in the bottom, but we'll leave him there because he looks, he's eye candy. So anyway, welcome. Who's here? I don't think we're going to make the hour. We're going to entertain you as much as we can. Everybody else is away doing things. I mean, Andy's got his big coat on. He's in Macclesfield after the baking sun of Spain, so he's got his big coat on and he's wrapped up and he's got a scarf on and a vest, so he can stay warm in Macclesfield. So I hope they have a good session, and his presentations are always good. And I have just noticed we haven't started on.
Have we not?
On the says live in 41 minutes. Let me just. No, we're losing people all over the place. I take it nobody can hear me, so let me just come back off of here.
We are on YouTube.
You're on YouTube, are you?
Yeah, right, I'm just gonna... as well. We're live.
Hello, right. Everybody. Okay. Then sorry about that. So yeah, we had the same sort of problem last week. We weren't sure whether. Yeah, so we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're all here. Okay then. So what we're going to do, we were going to start with Roger's usual night of what's in the sky for the week. So we'll just wait, see if we can get him back in. So yeah, people are coming back in, but yeah, we had the same problem last week for some reason. It appeared that we weren't on, but we were on. So we had 2 shows.
Yeah,
because we stopped and started again. But that's all right because it doubled our views. Anyway, so welcome again. Sorry. It's nice to see Bernard in again. How are you, Bernard? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm on mute. I'm doing fine. I'm really happy and excited to be back. I'm just very busy with workloads and all the rest. So, but yeah, looking forward for a nice evening with you guys.
Fantastic. You're not really rusty with this system. So, Michael, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Thank you, Daz. Good to be here. It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you've been on your travels and wandering around and fine dining. I understand.
Yes.
Okay then. Yes. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank everybody who bought us a coffee. Who buys and so I'll just bring up the QR code. So
I'm just doing it, Daz.
Oh, you've just done it. Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, every penny that you send us goes straight back into Space Oddities.
Yeah.
There is a cost for us to be able to stream this, but all the money goes straight back in, and we do really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And of course, if you would like to talk about the merchandise.
Yeah, can do. So let me introduce you all to the Space Oddities shop. All of our merchandise is in one place, T-shirts and hoodies, etc. If you scan that QR code, you can go to all of them. But I'll go through the different items that we have. We have the 2024 version of the hoodies. But both versions with the logo on the front and one version with the logo on the back, which is the zip up. Is that right, Daz?
That's right. The logo on the back with the zip up. And
so just scan that QR code with your camera, and that will take you to the right place online. Okay, and then
they're £40, aren't they?
Those are £40. Yeah, T-shirts are sorry.
Yeah, there's £40, and just add £10 for postage and packaging if you're abroad.
Yeah.
For UK, it's that's postage included.
That's right. Yeah. And the T-shirts, what's the price now? Is that 25? Is that £25 now? Or is
I think they are £25.
Yeah, £25, including UK postage.
Yeah. Again, £10 abroad.
Yeah, we got the 24 design, which I'm wearing tonight as well. So it does work. We've also got the lapel design T-shirt with the old design logo on there. This T-shirt can also be ordered as a long sleeve version as well. So that's something a bit different if you find it getting a bit chilly in the evening, maybe. We still have the retro Space Oddities design from last year, as Daz is sporting there. That's the T-shirt and also the hoodies. Oops. Yeah, which I believe Daz is sporting there. Yeah.
Yeah, the retro ones.
And of course, if you're not too bothered about the merchandise, you could always, as we say, buy us a coffee. And there's the someone's scanning the QR code. That's good.
Thank you very much.
Right, so that's the latest on the merchandise situation. We did look into the possibility of getting mugs designed, but and you have to buy lots and lots of different lots and lots of mugs to make it viable, and it just costs too much. The whole thing to buy them all. So that's not really viable at the moment, unfortunately. So, but we'll keep on looking and see if there's any other options.
Yeah, we're also looking at doing mouse mats.
Yeah.
But again, it's the same situation. It depends upon quantity ordered as to the cost per item. So, but we are hoping to expand our merchandise very, very soon. As soon as we do, we'll let you know, and we can all look cool. So, so that's fantastic. It seems that Roger's still having problems getting in. So what we'll do is if we go to Michael, basically what Michael's going to be talking about is the International Astronomical Union, which are the people who decide everything basically. They're thinking about redesignating what is a planet. So I'll leave it with Michael, and he can just quickly run through what it actually is. Cheers, Michael.
Okay. So this is okay. So this is all about the 2006 decision to define a planet by the IAU, International Astronomical Union, which resulted in the sad demise of Pluto to become a dwarf planet rather than a planet in its own right. I've put the title on here as "Will Pluto's demotion to a dwarf planet change?" Not sure if that will happen, but if I go through the slides, you'll see what I mean. So I'll just go through a little bit of history. The term planet has been in use for centuries, since the ancient Greeks employed the term asteris planetae, or wandering star. What they noticed is that the planets actually moved in relation to the background stars. So they realised that they were different than the background stars, and they called them wandering stars. That's where that term came from. And of course, the word planet comes from that Greek word planetae. Okay. This is what they noticed. This is an example. This is the planet Mars, where it goes into a retrograde motion and partway through its visible apparition from the Earth, and then goes back again. But all of the background stars stay in the same position, and that's why the ancients called them wanderers. Okay. I'll go for the next one. So this is a basic diagram of the solar system as we know it. Most of the planets orbit in a similar plane to each other, except Pluto, which orbits in a quite an elliptical orbit and inclined to the main plane of the solar system as well. But even so, we've also always called Pluto a planet ever since its discovery in 1930. Okay, so but new discoveries, although we only knew about the major planets for centuries, new discoveries began to cause debate about the term planet. For instance, in January 1901, the minor planet, as it were, Ceres was discovered, and astronomers immediately declared Ceres to be the so-called missing planet between Mars and Jupiter. But of course, we all know that the Ceres is not very big compared with the other planets. And also, within 4 years, the discovery of 2 more objects with comparable sizes and orbits had cast doubts on this new thinking. By 1851, the number of planets had grown to 23. The 8 major planets plus 15 minor planets between Mars and Jupiter. And it was clear that hundreds more would be eventually discovered. So, with the discovery of Pluto in 1930, astronomers considered the solar system to have 9 planets, along with thousands of smaller bodies, such as asteroids and comets. Pluto was initially thought to be larger than Mercury. Okay, this is one of the best images that we have of Pluto and its moon Charon, captured a few years ago. Oh, I've got the same one there. Sorry about that. Okay, but we've never really had a definition of what the term planet means. But in 2006, the International Astronomical Union wanted to put that right, and they published a new definition of a planet, stating that 1, it is in an orbit around the sun. 2, has a sufficient mass to assume hydrostatic equilibrium or a nearly round shape, and also has cleared the neighbourhood around its orbit. Now, that sort of caused debates in its own right. So the IAU has stated that there are 8 known planets in the solar system. It has been argued that the definition is problematic because it depends on the location of the body. If a Mars-sized body was discovered in the inner Oort cloud, it would not have enough mass to clear out a neighbourhood to meet that size and meet criteria. And the requirement for hydrostatic equilibrium criterion 2 is also universally treated loosely as simply as a requirement for roundedness. Mercury is not actually in hydrostatic equilibrium, but it is explicitly included by the IAU definition as a planet. Now, the IAU proposed changes to the definition of a planet, the term planet. The current definition specifically mentions orbiting our sun. We now know about the existence of thousands of planets, but the IAU definition applies only to the ones in our solar system. We propose a new definition that can be applied to celestial bodies that orbit any star, a stellar remnant, or a brown dwarf. In the new definition, a planet is a celestial body that orbits one or more stars, brown dwarfs, or stellar remnants, and is more massive than 1,023 kilograms. I think that's like a few zeros missing there, and is less massive than 13 Jupiter masses. So that's the new definition. So it's not restricted to planets in our solar system. So that's the argument, and I understand that there's going to be a vote on this later this year in a meeting of the IAU. So that's the background, if you like. So if I can just close that down now. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. So yeah. So,
yeah. It's a very strange, as you said, that weight. There's
yeah.
nothing. I think there
Well, now
should be. Yeah, I think it should be to the power of or something like that.
the power of something. Yeah.
Yeah.
To the power
So
of lots.
yeah, 1,023
Yeah.
kilograms
Kilograms is not
isn't.
nothing, is it? So,
No.
like a bag of
Yeah,
sugar.
so, yeah, a few bags of sugar. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you said, it was. I mean, when they demoted Pluto, it did create a furore.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
But with the definitions, especially the clearing the planet, clearing
Yeah.
its orbit, it was very vague without actually putting any specific definition on what it actually meant.
And
Well, of course, we know Jupiter has got Trojan and
that's
Greek.
right. So
Um,
Jupiter's orbit isn't clear. Even the Earth's orbit isn't clear
no,
because
so,
we've got so many near Earth objects that come quite close to Earth.
yeah. What do you think, Bernard?
Well, look, I think all this boils down to a simple thing: is that at the moment, it's if we start to follow this new definition of a planet, then every few years, as we discover more, major, like more big objects within big planetary bodies within the Kuiper belt or whatnot, we would have to increase the number of planets and that we say in school, and that really is the crux of this. At some point, the IAU had to come up with something to sort of freeze this number so that we can all agree that at the moment we have 8 planets. Because afterwards we're just going to carry on discovering new planetary bodies in our solar system that are going to be the size of Pluto, and that's for sure, because we know that from a probability point of view. So while I do completely understand that we have to try and clarify a little bit more about what a planet is, I'm not entirely sure this is going to fly, just because it's just going to it's going to add so much confusion to an already complicated thing, which is the planetary science. And we, as a science communicator, I would potentially not be in favor of that, because we have to try and make planetary science as approachable as easy for people to understand, and just keep on saying, oh, we've discovered a new planet. Kids, we don't have 8 planets anymore, we have 12, and then 2 years later we have 15, and then we have 23. It's going to confuse many things, and I think that's really what we're trying to, well, at least what we're trying to achieve here. So does that definition work for me? Not necessarily. Because we've also talked about, before the show started, we've talked about rogue planets, planetary bodies that are quite large and do not orbit a stellar object. So I think there's
but
go ahead, Michael.
Even after Pluto's discovery, and the orbit was worked out to be inclined to the plane of the ecliptic, as it were, we still call Pluto a planet, even though it was a bit stranger than the other planets.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Because also,
sorry, I was just going to say, and once we've discovered Pluto and realized it was not as massive as we would, as the calculations initially predicted, throughout the decades, we started to refine more and more the mass of Pluto and its apparent size, and that was just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking for like throughout the whole 20th century. Pluto was keep on being smaller and smaller and smaller due to all these different observations we were making, and people, it was looking less and less like a planet. Let's be honest, like a classical planet, and people were still stuck on this idea that no, Pluto is a planet, and I would potentially disagree, because there are at the end, we're just, it's difficult to classify planetary objects because these are unique bodies in their own rights. But I think more from an educational point of view, I'd just be very happy with the 8 classical planets, and then all the other planetary bodies can be categorized in a different way.
Yeah, because I mean, you saying about the uniqueness of different planets, and one of the, as Michael's touched on, is the huge inclination and its elliptic orbit of Pluto, because at some stage for what I think is about 200 odd years, it actually orbits within the orbit of Neptune. Because of the inclination, it actually falls inside um, orbit of Neptune, so which does also make it a very much more um, uh, interesting planetoid, or what they call a minor planet now.
Yeah.
So Pluto has always been a little bit of a problem as regards its thing, its makeup and things like that. So yeah, of course. So when they came up with their original definition, Pluto fell foul of it.
And
In
yeah,
basically, it was to do with the clearing of its orbit, most of it.
yeah, and the
Um,
irony, the irony here is that when the IAU decided to demote Pluto, New Horizons was launched. The first
yeah,
spacecraft ever to go and reach Pluto was launched at the same year that they've demoted it, and there's also a strong national sentiment towards it because Pluto was discovered by an American. It was the first,
yeah,
between quotes,
Clyde Tombaugh.
planet that was discovered by an American citizen. So there was, from the American across the pond, there was a lot of reticence on pulling down Pluto. So
Yeah, yeah, because it was Clyde Tombaugh who discovered it. And in fact, you mentioned New Horizons. Of course, some of his ashes were on New Horizons.
that's true. What an
And of
amazing,
course,
what an
that's
amazing
done
thing,
its
right?
flyby of Pluto now, and it's going off out into the Kuiper Belt, and it's discovering more and more asteroids and things like that for us. Um, I think we have lost Roger, but
Yeah,
Michael's just coming back in.
yeah.
But
I just found out how to turn me on. Wait, excuse me.
you just turned yourself off.
Yeah,
All right, I've just got to. But yeah, as we say, and the definition of planets is going to change. But as we say, as Michael pointed out, in the history, the word planet comes from the Greek, and it means wanderer. So as you mentioned, you got
yeah,
the rogue planets that are floating around in interplanetary space doing nothing. They're not
yeah.
associated to stars or anything like that, but they are true wanderers. So they are true planets.
Mm,
So it's just one of those things. It's all to do with semantics, and we need to nail down a definite uh, a logical, understandable criteria of what actually a planet will be. Because the people who have brought this forward again is Michael Brown
yeah.
and Konstantin Battenjin, and of course it was Michael Brown who has been pilloried for actually demoting Pluto originally. But as he said, really, the blame lies with Pluto not clearing its orbit and growing big enough to actually fall into the classification. So be what you may, that's what that's all about. It's still in the sort of like planning stages. Um, it's not going to be decided for a few years. Again, we'll have to go through all the um, the talking about it, getting people's opinions, and then of course they'll probably have the famous votes like they had with Pluto, and we will see what happens. It's a watch this space scenario as regards this, and we'll just keep you up to date with anything that we hear about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Here's an interesting thing about Michael Brown's decision to carry on pushing this, because yes, he was he was very influential and sort of forced that move as well from a as a key opinion leader. But he's also been searching for years now for Planet X,
Yeah.
Planet 9, right? So
Planet 9, yeah.
that will be interesting if according to the calculations that if we do actually find Planet 9, quite far away in our solar system, quite far off from the Kuiper belt, it will be interesting to see what are the characteristics of this planet, and and would that potentially influence again the definition of what is a planet. And this is actually quite exciting, because we sort of have this vision that that we know pretty much everything that needed to be discovered in our solar system has been discovered, and that's actually far from the truth. There are still lots of planetary objects out there that that could potentially shift again the landscape of what we can define as a planetary object. So it's very, very exciting, and thanks very much, Michael, for bringing this up.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's Michael Brown and Konstantin Batijan. If I'm murdering that, I do apologise. But of course, they've been looking for, as you said, Bernard, for Planet 9. And of course, they've noticed that 6 small bodies in the outer solar system, the way their orbits are being disturbed, and they think that could be an indication that there is a Planet 9 out there, and they are, as you said, still looking for it. So it's a watch this space scenario.
And I wanted to say as well, guys, that like yourselves, I grew up learning that Pluto was a planet. When ever since I started learning about astronomy, to me, I think it still is a planet. I don't think it should have been demoted at all. I think it should have been left where it was. But there we go.
Well, there is that argument. I mean, you've got all the old
all the old textbooks are still
still saying that. And also, what you've got to remember is that the Arecibo message that was sent from Arecibo to M13, the Great Hercules cluster, and also the discs on the Voyagers and the panels on the Pioneers all say we've got 9. So if somebody comes to study us and they say, well, that can't be right,
they're going to get lost.
They've only got 8. They've lost one, or we're in the wrong place, and we'll move on. So, it's just one of those things. But it's a watch this space scenario. It's fascinating how these things evolve. There'll be one of those big debates that will be possibly heated, because people will still want to get Pluto reinstated, regardless, the diehards.
I see this sort of semantic approach to this as similar to geographers who try to define what is a continent, and it's actually extremely difficult. And depending on what is a continent, sometimes some parts of Eurasia are taken, some parts of Eurasia are not. So it's very similar in that way. And again, it goes back to science communication. How do we best make this as easily accessible to people without without losing all the nuances of that science has?
Yeah, as I said to you earlier, I said it's what is a consonant? Well, it's not a vowel. So there you go. That's resolved it. If it NALIOU,
that's the level. That's the level of humor in here.
IOU, yes. Here's a thought as well. We live on the 3rd planet, that which is the 3rd planet from the sun. If an alien race came to visit our solar system, would they start looking when they started encountering the outer planets? Would they go 1, 2, 3 from the outer planets and definitely get the wrong place?
Interesting. That's why there's all these things on Mars. Now I understand.
They got it wrong. Because now Pluto doesn't count.
Because there's no more Pluto, so they
stopped at Mars. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think it's about time
Yeah,
we moved on before we get
I
too
think we can
reading too
move on
serious.
from that
But
now.
yeah, it's an interesting subject, and
Yeah,
as you said, it's going to be debated left, right, and
yeah.
centre.
I'll
And it'll be it's a, sort of be also on par of
yeah,
the
we'll keep an eye on it.
expanding universe and the static state. I
Yeah,
mean, Fred Hoyle never gave up on the static
no,
state because that was
that's
his
good.
baby. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
we'll keep an eye on it, folks. Anyway, so
yeah,
watch this
we'll
space as
keep you
this.
updated. So right, okay then. It looks like we have lost Roger, which is unfortunate. But what we will now move on to, and well, firstly, let's have a chat with Bernard and find out exactly what he's been doing. Well, we haven't seen him, so how are things
Yeah.
going with your writings?
Thank you, Daz. Well, I mean, there are two
Mm.
things. First of all, I'm just I'm a full-time science writer working in the life science industry, so I'm just incredibly busy with that at the moment, and I'm also very busy because I'm those who've seen me before on this channel know that I was finishing writing off the second edition of my first book, and I actually call it my third book because I decided to rewrite it entirely from scratch, not only updating the science and all the latest news, but actually just going back from square one. And that proved really daunting because I have a family life. I already work as as a writer, science writer, full time, and just adding that level of having to rewrite a full book just put a lot of pressure on me. But I really wanted to do so because I really wanted this new version to be much more approachable, but also of better quality. Because hey, what you write, where you are in terms of the quality of your writing changes over time, and my first book was over 7 years ago. And again, the topic of the book was I write about the ocean world, so these bodies of liquid water that are orbiting, that are inside some of the big icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Three around Saturn, Callisto, Ganymede, and Europa. Sorry, around Jupiter, Callisto, Ganymede, and Europa, and two around Saturn, Enceladus, and Titan. And I also characterize and go into a lot of depth on all the other potential ocean worlds out there, talking about their habitability and the potential for life in these environments. And writing my first book was writing the first version of this, the first edition of that book was an amazing experience because I write for Springer, which is a very big academic publisher, and that opened a lot of doors for me. And I was able to talk to the director of astrobiology at NASA at the time, and the director of astrobiology in the UK, and plenty of other people within the industry, and that was incredibly informative and fantastic. So it was a great pleasure for me to be able to go back and write this second edition of my first book. But oh my gosh, that was like a hell of a lot of work, and I'm just
Mhm.
I've sent the final confirmation of the proofs last night, very late,
Excellent.
um,
Excellent.
and uh, and there you go. But look, if you have any questions, feel free. The book
Yeah.
again is still called the same, so the ocean, exploring the ocean worlds of our solar system. If you want to know more, you can always look, where is it? Here on my website, and there's more information about it. Don't buy the first version, the first edition that's on the website. Wait until the next one is coming out, and that should be, I'd say, maybe in 2 months. So keep you
No.
posted, guys.
Right.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll keep an eye
That's
out for that.
Thank you.
Of course. I mean, how long ago was it you wrote the first edition?
Oh, that took me that took me a year, but that was
Yeah.
insane. That was insane. I had no idea
But
what
how
I was
long
going to
ago
be.
was it? Because of course,
Oh, sorry,
our
that was
knowledge is
yeah, that was
expanding.
sorry. That was in 2018.
Yeah.
Now, the only major thing that took place is we've been looking. It's a good question. We've been re-looking at data from Galileo probe, which went around Enceladus. So there's been a lot of revision of that data, which I've updated on the book. Of course, Ceres was visited by Dawn,
Yep.
the spacecraft, and that also has a potential ocean worlds, if not a fully a full ocean, at least bodies of liquid water inside it in certain regions that we suspect. and and then there's been some further observations, but there has been no more major spacecraft that has gone to an ocean world to observe it. So yeah, but there are definitely some updates, and there's actually one update that I got a bit made me a bit sad. It's about Pluto, because Pluto is one of the candidates for an ocean world, and the way the heart, Sputnik Planitia, the heart is there's a strong explanation, and that the way why we have these huge ice sheets of nitrogen and all the rest, with mountains of water ice, floating on it and all that. It's an amazing environment, right? Geological environment. And one of the explanations of that surface feature, is the fact that, yes, there most likely is an ocean, a global ocean underneath it. However, a few months ago, there was a paper that sort of contradicted that, and said that potentially there might be another model that doesn't require the need for a global ocean. So I've updated
this is book 3 now. This is book 3.
No. I've updated my book on that. That's fine. But this is how things are in planetary science. Like there's no certainty at the moment, and these are just different studies, and we just need more data. So we need to send more spacecraft to Pluto and to all these ocean worlds. And actually, the last part of my book, I talk about in detail about the new missions that were going to come out. Like, for example, European Space Agency's JUICE mission, who's just launched last year in April, and is going to go and spend lots of time, orbiting Ganymede and Callisto, and of course, the NASA Europa Clipper that is going to be launched in a few months. Right?
Can I just warn you there?
Okay.
I'll be talking about that in a little while.
Sure.
So don't
don't
get too excited about that.
Oh
there's
no,
a problem.
There is a problem. Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Andy says congratulations on your new book.
Thank
Ian
you.
says well done.
It's not out yet.
Also,
it's at the last stages, but thank you.
Yeah. I also noticed my daughter has popped in. So hello, Amber. So yeah, it's So yeah, congratulations on the new book. Let's hope we look forward to reading it.
I'll let you guys know when it's out. I'll ring the bell. When it's finally published.
Yeah, that's right. And we want mates rates. So yeah, so a little bit off, under the table, that'd be nice. Anyway, no, well done. And so now we know why that we haven't seen Bernard for quite a while. He's a busy chap. So yeah, it's Michael says that's like photography too.
I was replying to it.
Yeah, so it's like anything in science. Ian says it's like anything in science. Everything changes, and then Michael replied, "It's like photography too." Yeah, because I mean, are you writing actually a book, or is it just an article, Michael, about cameras
I'm working on an article that goes through the photos that astronauts took on orbit from the Mercury to the Apollo at the moment. It's basically all the photos that were taken with Hasselblad cameras.
Hasselblads, yeah.
Handheld by the astronauts. So I'm just working on that at the moment. Yeah. And it's quite interesting as being a photographer as well. So it's what I'm, trying to cross over, if you like, one to the other. So
yeah, it should be interesting. Yeah. Well, then we look forward to that as well.
Yeah. And presentation.
And presentation. Yeah, we want a presentation, and we want to have a chat about these things and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you to the both of you. Right, I think it's time for us to move on. I think we'll do a little bit of space news now. So if I just come over here, let's hope this works. The reason I'm a little bit hesitant, everybody, is I want a brand new computer, and it's been a nightmare trying to set it up for some unknown reason. I do not know why. But here we are. We're talking about space news. Right, we're going to start. This is off the cuff. I've got nothing written down. But it gives us something to actually talk about. Of course, we have the Falcon 9, which now unfortunately has been grounded due to a very, very rare occurrence. It was to launch 20 Starlink satellites. It took off beautifully, as always. The first stage separated. The Merlin VAX engine fired itself up on stage 2. And then you can see, if you look at this image on the right, you can see all this ice forming. And on the other side, when they got the camera on the other side, it was even worse. What they noticed, first of all, was there was pieces of ice actually flowing past the nozzle and being disintegrated in the actual exhaust of the jet itself. But the everything was working perfectly well. But the ice started to increase on this sort of like the mylar stuff, which is there not to actually keep the engine hot. It's actually to keep the engine cool because it's a reflective membrane. But what happened is that all this ice started to form and it started flying off. And as I said, on the other side, it was even more obvious. There were big chunks of this ice flying away. And they were coming past the camera as well. So it was happening a bit further up on stage 2. And what they think was happening is somewhere along the line, a liquid oxygen leak happened. And all the liquid oxygen was coming out and freezing. And was flying past the nozzles and that, and it got worse and worse and worse. But the rocket kept climbing. Everything was nominal. The performance was nominal. But everybody was just watching this amazingly. There's all this ice forming and just flying past. It reached it reached the period where it actually switched off the engine for its because it was a 2 burn mission. It was going to do 2 burns, and what it was is they switched itself off. But when they come to relight it to put it in its final orbit to release the satellites, it wouldn't start. And there is talk of it that actually did RUD, which is a rapid unscheduled dismantling. Now, whether or not that was exactly true, we're not sure. But as a result, they did release the satellites. But the thing is, their orbit is so low, and on these satellites, they have ion engines, which are very, very efficient, but they're not that powerful to begin with. And they think that they released the satellites. They were able to communicate with some of them, but they think the orbit is too slow, too low, that they're experiencing atmosphere drag, and the engines aren't powerful enough to overcome that drag to push them up into a stable orbit. And I have heard something that some of them have already returned, possibly. They burnt up in the atmosphere. But of course, this is actually with the FAA, it's created an incident. So they've actually grounded the Falcon 5. Now the Falcon 9, sorry. The Falcon 9 has done over 300 launches, and this is the first time that the second stage has ever had an anomaly like this at all. The only other times it's usually been on launch or actually there was an issue with ground systems once and it exploded on the pad. So this has been very, very reliable. It's very. I mean, the booster stage came back and landed perfectly, like they always do. They're all becoming breaking records left, right, and centre. But now, because this has been grounded, there is now a knock-on problem. This all comes back to the likes of Starliner and things like that not being able to be certified, and that's now they have no way of getting to at the moment while this is grounded. Getting to the International Space Station. Also, at the end of the month, we were expecting to see Polaris Dawn, which was going to be the first private spacewalk. That looks as though it could be in jeopardy. Now, it all depends how quickly that SpaceX can determine what has happened here, and for it to be able to be granted back its certification, and then it'll be launching again. You'll probably find the first launch after everything has been cleared will be a Starlink launch. They're not going to put a crew or anyone on top of this until they think, until they know exactly that everything is safe again. This looks like it was something that maybe something failed for the first time, or maybe a bolt wasn't done up and liquid oxygen was able to get past seals. But this is now a bit of a problem because basically the USA, other than some of the smaller launch providers, have no way of getting things into space. The Vulcan isn't ready. The mythical Blue Origin's New Glenn isn't ready. And also the Dream Chaser, that's an inaugural flight, has been pushed back now into later 2025.
Yeah.
So they have really no way until this is sorted out of getting crews up and down from the International Space Station. And of course, we already know that Starliner's up there anyway. So, any thoughts, people?
Yeah, bad news basically. We seem to be relying on Falcon 9, and there's no real alternative than that as well. So, what do you do? What do you do if something goes wrong like that? So, yeah, not good news really.
Well, exactly. It's
You wouldn't want it to happen to any launch provider, let alone
no,
SpaceX. Just want to make that clear. I mean, that all launch providers are doing a grand job anyway, in the scheme of things, and we wouldn't want any anomalies like that to happen. And of course, similar thing has happened with the Ariane 6 launch as well.
Yeah, well, I've just got to come on to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, I'm just looking at what people are saying in the chat. I won't put them up because but it is that there is it's sort of like split people in what they're saying, but most of it is for the factors that it's the Starlink thing. So they're hoping there's going to be a delay for quite a while. But somebody's talking about a mad scientist should be building a Starlink EMP to bring them down. But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. It really does curtail everything in space, and of course, we were concerned about the Starliner taking up a docking space on the International Space Station. But I understand there's only two, I think it was two docking spaces that they were able to go to. And at the moment, they're both taken because the Cygnus supply ship uses a different system. The Russians use a different system because I think there's 6 ports altogether, but they're already taken at the moment. So, so what we'll do is we'll move on to the next item that we've got. So now Ariane 6. At long last, it launched. The launch was absolutely perfect. It was a beautiful launch into. They were concerned about the weather, but the skies there you can see weren't that bad. Everything went astonishingly well. And if you remember, there was supposed to be 2 Galileo satellites on here, but they didn't fly because they've already been launched by Falcon 9s. Because of the delay. They needed the satellites up in orbit, and I think there's one more Falcon 9 to take 2 more Galileo satellites up.
That's the Galileo positioning satellites, isn't it?
That's right. It's the European sort of like GPS system, and so I think there's one more launch with a Falcon 9, and then they're going back to the Ariane 6. But it did take up payloads. It took up quite a few CubeSats and other little minor experimentations. But again, exactly like the Falcon 9, when it came for the second stage to relight its engine, again it failed. It actually relit for a fraction of a second, and then it was shut down by the onboard computers. There was something that it sensed was wrong, so it shut them down. But it had already deployed most of the CubeSats. The only things that remained on there were two re-entry experiments that were on the payload on the second stage, which was they were supposed to be released, and they were basically to monitor re-entry and using new materials and things like that. So again, Ariane 6, partial success. That's all you can say. Basically, 90% of it was a success, but they now have to go back and just have a look at the telemetry and what actually happened, why it didn't relight. And they were so confident that they're talking that they will be launching again either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, very, very soon, as soon as possible. So again, like the Falcon 9, it was just one of these things. And Gaza's sorry, carry on.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just? I just wanted to say that the launch of Ariane 6 was, for me, one of the most beautiful launches I've ever seen. It was just truly remarkable in every way. It's such a beautiful shaped rocket, actually. So yeah, just wanted to share it out there. I really love that.
Yeah, Gaza's asking, let me just have a look. When does Scotland come online? And Ian's already replied to that, and he said, we are preparing. I mean, obviously he's involved, preparing for the first orbital launch in autumn of 2024 at Lamberness in Unst, Shetland, and that's from their website. So hopefully it's going to be the autumn of this year, and we'll all be there. Don't worry. Ian will be right. Ian will be there as our roving reporter.
Yeah.
You were going to say, Michael?
Ian's the man.
Yeah, he's our man in Scotland.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all right. So let's move on to the next subject. Trying to find my buttons. Where are we? Let's try again. Why aren't you moving on? Don't give me a hard time. Right, here we go. Right. SpaceX and the Starship and the booster, they've tested all the boosters on the Starship. They did this last night. They fired all 33 engines and everything seemed to work perfectly. So their next test launch 5 is well on its way. It's just literally going to be, it's just down the road, literally. We're just going to, as soon as they're, so I'm not sure whether they have to wait for a license, because I think the last license they had was a little bit open-ended. So it'll be interesting to see where they actually stand with this. So we're not far off from our next launch of the biggest rocket ever made. But it was again a beautiful sight. If you go to NASA Spaceflight, and there's a couple of other sites on the YouTube, and some of the images are absolutely fantastic. You can see the impulse waves of all the engines firing and things like that, and it's a beautiful sight. And it's fingers crossed that very soon we'll be watching another live flight. Apparently they think that they've solved the problem of the fins burning through, but only time will tell. And we will, and of course they're talking about that they may be catching the booster with the chopsticks. So it could be something else to get really excited about.
Is that the booster or the Starship?
The booster.
The booster. Okay.
Yeah, right. I do believe it's just the booster.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure what they do. I think they're doing possibly again a soft landing in the sea.
Yeah.
Because they can't catch them both. So we will see. So what do we got next? Let's have a look. Oh, Starliner. Now, as we know, they're still up on they're not stranded. Let's get that out of the way straight away. They're not in any danger. Stop all this clickbait that's going around. They are still looking at the telemetry. They're still doing tests on the ground. And what they've found is that if you look on the top of this Starliner on there's the support, life support section just below the actual capsule, you can see this sort of like rectangular box. It's called a doghouse. And in there, you've got some of your main thrusters, which will be used to adjust its attitude on re-entry. And what they found is that within these actual dog houses, at the top, there's of course insulation, which is protecting the plumbing up there. Is that the heat's being trapped, and the boosters are overheating. And what they're doing is they're losing efficiency until eventually they're just wasting energy. So they've all the boosters that failed. They've got 4 of them. 5 of them failed when they were docking. They've basically recovered 4 of them, but a 5th one's going to be basically just switched off. They won't be using it. Now, on the ground, they've been testing these to almost destruction to try and find out, but they cannot recreate. It seems that they cannot recreate the high temperatures that they are being achieved actually in the space flight. Now, it's one of these things. They think as it stands at the moment, everything will be perfectly safe. For them to return, and they're looking at the end of July now for it to undock and return sunny and so I was going to say Sundance then, Butch back to Earth.
Yeah.
As I said, nobody's in danger. This is something that we'll be watching for, but again, this has got to be leaving the International Space Station before anything else can actually happen. Before they can even get I think the next crew is Crew 8 on the Falcon 9. So it's the Crew 8 mission with Falcon 9. So yes, they're still up there. Again, it's a watch this space scenario, and it's just to see how things go. As I said, they've been doing tests on the ground. They've been taking the thrusters apart. They've been looking at the other capsule, the one that got seized with all the seized thrusters, which they never really got to the bottom through to. But they've been taking all those thrusters apart, examining the where the valves have been leaking, and they're just wondering whether or not it just needs a thicker seal to be put in there to make sure the mating of all the actual 2 parts that are coming together are well sealed. So they are still looking at that, but they will be. They're looking for the 30th of at the end of July. I think it's the 30th, about the 31st or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're all safe. Don't worry about them. Right. United Launch Alliance and Blue Origin. Now, as we know, United Launch Alliance have been having lots of problems. Well, not lots of problems. There have been lots of delays with their Vulcan Centaur rocket, which is going to be their main vehicle for getting things up into space. Now, we know that they were up for sale. They came up to sale several months ago. And it was cited that the main people who were looking at purchasing it was Blue Origin. Now, from what I understand, it could be just gossip, but they've taken a step closer, and it looks like Blue Origin will be purchasing ULA. Now, if you remember, ULA are basically a government monopoly that were created to make sure that the US military had access to space for their satellites. But of course, with all the delays, SpaceX have had to step in and launch most of the actual launches for the military. The military have got so ticked off with ULA that they have actually fined them for the delays, so they're leeching money. I'm not sure when the next possible launch is for the Vulcan is scheduled in, but they are sort of struggling, and the thing is, again, it all comes down to also price as well, because all the rockets that they're using at the moment are expendable, even the new ones. And of course, Blue Origin have never put anything into orbit. So this is one way that hopefully, I suppose Jeff Bezos is hoping that he can actually put a rocket into orbit. As we said, we've had lots of promises with the new Glenn, but other than mock-ups, we've never actually seen anything materialize. So just keep an eye out. So of course, if you remember, like I said, this ULA was a monopoly. They are Lockheed Martin and Boeing, so they're basically old space, but they won't disappear off the block. They'll still be there as in their own entities again, with ULA becoming part of Blue Origin. So yeah, watch this space scenario. So if we add to them again the Boeing logo, these three companies have decided that they're actually going to sue the FAA. And it's about over SpaceX again launching from Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
What they're doing is that the FAA have basically given a green light to SpaceX to carry on with their building the towers for these the boosters, the Starship and the Starship Heavy, or the Heavy Starship, whatever they call it, which is going to be even a bigger machine. But of course, I mean, all these companies here that we're looking at here now, they're struggling. They're struggling. They're not getting their share of the pie. The fact that they're overpriced, they don't produce on time, doesn't really come into it. They've been so used ever since. This all goes back to the formation of NASA. NASA was supposed to be a civil organization, civil run organization, but the purse strings were held by the government. And basically, the only people who could build the rockets at the time were the same people who were building the rockets before, and all the munitions and things like that. So they've always been there. They love to use what they call cost plus contracts. Whereas if they actually they agree a price that they're going to do a contract for, but what they do is they as they're building things, they find delays, they find this, that, and more developments needed. Any costs that they occur are repaid by the government to them. But of course, the government and NASA were trying to look at, I think it's more of a gimmick, really. We're trying to look at fixed price contracts. Boeing have tried a fixed price contract with the Starliner and have lost millions and millions of pounds. I think it's into the billions now. So they want to basically go back and just use cost plus contracts. But of course, you've then got SpaceX, which is doing everything for a fixed price, and they're succeeding, which is putting them in a bad light. And what they've done is they've decided they're going to sue the FAA for permitting SpaceX to produce its own environmental reports, they're saying. But they've literally, the letters were sent in by Blue Origin. Blue Origins was 3 pages long, pointing out the error of the FAA, the error of their ways, and the ULA's was 22 pages long. But when you reduce it down, they both say exactly the same thing, and it's they want restrictions on what how many launches that SpaceX can actually launch from Cape Canaveral. They want more protections for the environment, for this, that, and the other. They want more protections for the other companies that work there. Of course, that's Blue Origin, that's ULA, Boeing, and all that. And they actually, the gist of it comes down to they've got a whole list of demands that have to be met. And one of them says that they have to be paid compensation if their own business is interrupted by the fact that SpaceX is launching so often that it shuts down their launches. Well, when they can actually launch something, come back and talk to us. But that's what it is. It's all about money. And it's, Jeff, he loves a nice court battle. So what else we got? Europa Clipper. Now, I don't want. Sorry to rain on your parade, Bernard.
Oh dear.
But
Oh dear.
they found that under testing, and I'll be quite honest, I find this completely unbelievable. But with further testing, they found that the transistors that are actually in the Europa Clipper and what it'll be using will not be able to cope with the radiation from Jupiter. And we know that Jupiter has immense radiation fields. So they reckon that these systems on board would be failing. Now, these are all internally mounted, and what they're trying to say is, well, let's go ahead anyway, and see these things. But what I find unbelievable is that these have not been tested to destruction, so that they would know. We've known for years that Jupiter has got this immense magnetic field. It's all in turmoil. And so why haven't they tested these to the nth degree? But now they've discovered that these transistors, they don't think they'll survive. So are they going to launch or aren't they? It's either going to cause massive delays with a completely rebuilding of the actual satellite itself, the probe, or they're going to go for it, and you never know, they could fail and it'll be a total failure. So that is really sad news. Yeah, carry on.
Oh my gosh, Daz, can you tell me a bit more about what those transistors are going to be doing exactly? Is it on a specific instrument, or is it on the spacecraft's navigation system? What is?
I honestly couldn't tell you. We were trying to find out a bit more about them, but it seems that these transistors, whatever they're actually internally, they will be running. I think it's all the systems. I think it's what they're made of, how they're made. Now, as I said, why they weren't tested to destruction, so you know what they can actually handle, because we know we've had probes out, we've had Juno and everything out there. And they've all survived. So why all of a sudden these transistors become suspect?
Yeah.
So until we know a bit more, because I've only found one reporting this, but it didn't go into because it's all NASA built and it's all NASA contractors. So we'll get back to you. Watch out this space once we know a bit more about this, because we were all looking for this Europa Clipper to get it out there, and it's a watch this space. Sorry, excuse the pun. So yeah, sorry, I can't help you with that really, Bernard. But it's a it's if it is a fact that these things aren't going to work or they're going to fail, it's going to be a loss to everyone again. And again, it's a lot of money and time that's been wasted. So, but who was that? You, Bernard?
Yes.
Yeah, carry on.
Say them.
Sorry, you're breaking
so
up.
long,
You're breaking up. Sorry, Bernard. Right, let's try this. Right, spacesuits. Right. Here we go again. That's all I can say about this. Is that Artemis looks as though it's going to be delayed even longer, because the people who are building the actual moon suits, the actual EVA suits for the moon, Collins, find they can't do it for the price for the money they've been given. Again, this is a fixed price contract. It was Axiom and Collins who were given the, and of course, this is after NASA tried to build their own, and they completely botched it. And it was become so expensive. And the thing is, they were literally having to go back to the drawing board. That they decided to put it out to the private sector, and they chose Axiom and Collins. Axiom to build the EVA suit, the space suits for spacewalks, and that's the picture on the left there. That's their mock-up. And then Collins was given the task of actually building the moon suits. But of course, they've now found that they can't do it for the money, and they're basically saying they either need more money or they've got to pull out. So again, this affects the Artemis, it affects everything else, and it's just going around in circles. Because of Collins, they secured a portion of £97.2 million to build the moon suit. The total contract was 3.5 billion. It looks like it's going to be another fly in the ointment for Artemis, and it's going to cause more delays. And then sorry, Carol.
It's okay. Just
okay. And then on top of that, who's going to build Axiom suits? Prada.
No.
Yeah. So their share of the 3.5 billion is going to Prada. Prada have been they have been, well, it's been mentioned and they have announced it, that Prada are going to actually be building the Axiom suits. Now, does that mean it comes with matching accessories? Does it mean it's going to have sequins and boa feathers and things like that? It beggars belief.
See the commercial.
Yeah, it's just absolutely amazing, because I mean, when they built the old suits do need replacing; they're outdated.
Yeah.
And they've been having troubles with them on the International Space Station, even just recently.
The suits on the station are 30 years old, aren't they?
Apparently. Exactly. Of course, they've had to cancel 2 walks just recently because of the problems with suits, and one of them included a water leak, which water did ingress into one suit, but it was from the umbilical cord. So, yeah, these suits have got to be changed. But at least with the International Space Station, they can bring these suits back and refurbish them on the ground. But to actually make them, I think the reason that's one of the NASA, because NASA had, if I remember rightly, they had 26 different suppliers actually working, or contractors working on their spacesuits spread out all over America, which basically meant having meetings or being able to see how the work is actually progressing really hard. And then when they tried to mate the control panel, which is the main part, because you've got to remember is these are there to keep the astronauts alive. They are controlled systems that they control heat, oxygen, and everything else. It basically is a small climate inside the suit. When they tried to meet the actual control panel, it didn't fit. They weren't mated properly, and they managed to break them. So, of course, then they said that the suits were going to cost something like £1 billion per suit. So that's when NASA said enough's enough. They'd already been warned that this was they were overrunning in cost. There was no one overseeing the actual work, so they went to the private sector, and of course they chose Axiom and Collins, and this is where we are now. Collins look at us, say we either need to be given more money, or we're going to have to pull out and stop working on them, which again puts Artemis in jeopardy. So yeah, any comments on that sort of thing? So yeah,
although,
that's all you can say. Yeah.
this just delays again, and it's silly delays as well, because they've known
Exactly.
about the problem for years.
Yeah.
So why is it now becoming
Yeah.
they can't actually build spacesuits anymore?
Yeah, because if you remember, they built the original spacesuits and that back in the 60s.
Yeah.
But they used people who knew how to handle different materials. I think Playtex, the ladies' underwear, was one of the firms that was involved in it, because they know how to use elasticated materials and things like that to pull the ladies in. And it was so, but it was things like that they used companies that actually knew how to handle materials, how to make these different materials together. And we seem to have forgotten all this. I mean, because sorry, yeah, Bernard.
No, yeah, I was just going to say. I mean, it might be due to the deindustrialization of many Western countries, and the fact that we just can't do these things anymore, as you were saying, Daz, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just it's every. Unfortunately, it seems that everything that NASA does is got the anti-Midas touch. Rather than turn into gold, it's turned into lead. And it's but the thing is, it's like the technologies. What they achieved back in the 60s was totally outstanding. A lot of it was by the seat of your pants. They have had some major setbacks with some fatalities, so they sort of like become ultra cautious. But it seems that the materials we've got now are far superior. That, I mean, if you take a look at the Orion heat shield, again, that's another thing that's got to be resolved before Artemis 2 goes around the moon. These materials, they're supposed to be far more superior. Yeah, we didn't. I mean, yes, the ablation on the Apollo spacecraft was very large, but they didn't have holes burning in them, which is what the problem appears to be. And it seems to be that it's exposed boltings or fixings that are holding the heat shield on, that have been virtually almost melted away. And this is what of concern for the Orion capsule. So this is something else that's got to be resolved. It just seems very strange that we've got all these new exotic materials, and we can't get this all sorted out and get it together. And it's just one of those things. We just got to watch this space. We're gonna have to be patient. But some of this just seems to be totally mismanaged. So anything else, lads? And if we're not, we'll move on. Will there be a victorious secret? You never know. They may be talking to them now, because Collins, because Collins.
Are we not supposed to do experiments on human reproduction in space and?
Well, yeah. I mean, they've got to look pretty, haven't they? And also, with the extra strapping, they can stop themselves from floating around and stuff like that.
I think that might be for another show.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about thrusters anyway. So okay then. So right. If anyone's got any questions for Bernard, don't forget to pop them in the chat and on his book and on his studies. So basically, I think we're sorry. Yeah, carry on.
No, we'll do another session when the book is launched.
Yeah,
so
yeah, because hopefully we'll all be back next week with things going on. Right. So really, there's only one more thing to do, and that's my review of the Sun.
Oh.
So if everybody's ready, we will give this a go. Now this will be interesting to see if it works. So stand by. Right, that's not what I wanted. Just bear with me, please. I just want to get this full screen. I've got to come up with there. Just bear with me, please. Talk amongst yourselves. Right.
That
right. Can you see that full screen now? Hello.
You've still got your editing screen up.
Yeah.
Oh, have I? All I needed. Right. What I'll do is I'll go through this because, as I said, this is this machine with the way that the whole thing's set up. So let me just come back over here a minute, if I can. Let me just come off of there. Go to there. Yeah, I see. I have. Yeah. So what I'll do is we're jumping around all over the place. Sorry, I do apologize. So right, we'll have to run it straight off of here if I can. So basically, what we've got here, this is the solar dynamic probe. Let me just try something actually. Have we gone big now, or no? We've still got the same one, haven't we?
The same.
Yeah, I do apologize. Right, we're going to have to run it through here. So this is the solar dynamic orbiter. Now, this solar dynamic orbiter, it actually orbits the Earth. And it uses a, now let me get this right, a inclined geosynchronous orbit around the Earth. And what it means that happens is that during its actual progression around the Earth, with it, because it's always pointing towards the sun, it actually gets eclipsed. The Earth actually eclipses the sun, and this is what we get. Oh, come on, start. Right, I might have to go onto here anyway.
Hang on, you can put the cursor
Right,
down.
can you see that? No, it's not running, is it?
It's not working, Daz.
You know, your main screen there, Daz. Just put your cursor down to the bottom again.
Yeah, it's not. I'm actually on. I'm trying to run the
It doesn't matter.
screen itself.
You should be able to do
it. Let me just come off here a minute. Let's have a look. Here we are. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, see where we are. So this is what happens. Now these are 4 different wavelengths, and you can see that there's something moving backwards and forwards across the actual sun itself, and it's actually the Earth, because the Earth tends to get in the way. So what's actually happening is this. Because it's on an incline and it actually moves up and down, twice a year, actually, the Earth starts to eclipse the actual sun itself. And it happens twice a year. Let me just read this to you, and then it'll probably make a bit more sense. I'm a bit flustered now, it didn't work. It says, the Solar Dynamics Orbiter, or the SDO, enters its 29th eclipse season. The spacecraft's inclined geosynchronous orbit around the Earth is designed to maximize its time looking at the sun. Still, each year, the spacecraft must experience 2 periods lasting 3 to 4 weeks each, where the Earth blocks the sun periodically from the spacecraft's point of view. The eclipses start around 30 minutes in length and reach a peak around about 72 minutes, then decrease again. The sequence will end on the August the 11th with eclipses down to 30 minutes again. After this, the next SDO eclipse season, number 30, will begin in January the 10th, 2025. So I'll just run that again so you can actually see what's happening. Most of the time it's orbiting the Earth and it can see the sun. All its instruments taking the photographs, but then occasionally when it passes round the back, it becomes eclipsed. And you will actually see this a bit later on when I actually drew the video. Now I must apologise, Jay Helio Viewer would not permit me to actually make videos on any of my machines. So I think there's a problem with the Helio Viewer. So let's start with a quick review. The image on the left is from the 9th, and the image on the right is from the 16th. And as you can see, the sunspot the active regions have increased quite a few. In fact, the active regions, we've gone to 8, so I think there's 12 on there at the moment. This week we've seen flares of 124 of them. And with the total sunspots that we've got at the moment is, I thought it was 200 and something. It's over 200 at the moment. So that's what it looked like on the 9th last week. Now, what we had is, if you look at region over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. No, you can. Oh, yes, you can.
You can.
We're looking at 3743. No, sorry, 3738. It's right on the edge here. Sorry, I was circling the wrong one. 3738. Now, through the week, when it first came on, we thought it was going to be promising, but it's actually grown in size, and also its magnetic complexity has increased, which means that it's more than likely going to be more and more active. And it did actually give us, here we are, it did actually give us an X flare in the middle of the week. This is in the last 24 hours, it's given us 2 flares of 5.3. But again, it's just moving off to the west limb, and its magnetic class at the moment is beta, gamma, delta. And they do actually mean something about, it's a bit more complicated. But it is actually declining now. So it's going to disappear off, but it's given us literally most of our solar flares. It's probably out of the solar flares, as I said, there was, I think it was 200. I don't know where I've written it now. I've written it somewhere else. We've over 200 odd flares over the week, and basically it is due to this one thing. It was quiet to begin with in the beginning of the week, but as it's got past sort of like halfway, it's really grown. It's become more complex, and it's given us lots of M-class flares, and it actually gave us our first X-class flare, which we haven't seen for a long time. This again is during the week. This is when it's really started to grow. You can see the different colors showing the different complexity. You've got 3 or 4 colors there, which shows that it's complex, and it's going to start firing off flares all the time. Then we had this huge region here come into view, and it's so big that in the end they had to put 3 different numbers on it. And these again are intensifying. They are getting bigger. So, and also, as you can see on the right hand side, I've actually put an Earth scale to show you how big these active regions are. They're actually absolutely huge. I hope you can see that. As I said, 3738 actually gave us our first X flare. And as I said, I couldn't get a video of it, but this is a static image of it. And you can see the light curves just here in the insert. But you can see there was a massive flare there. And it was 1.2. And it's the first one we've seen for a very, very long time. There was also another region that's actually growing. And it's 3751, which has just come on to the from the eastern side, and again it's growing. It's got a beta gamma complexity, which means it's there's a good chance that it's going to give us something over the next few days as it moves towards the center of the disk and then over to the right hand side. But it seems that all the action seems to be happening on the western limb at the moment. So we've had we have had a few coronal mass ejections, which I was hoping to show you, but again, unfortunately, Dr. Julia, Helio viewer. But I have managed to get off of another website this one short. This is just over 48 hours, and it's from the SDO, it's our solar dynamic orbiter that we were talking about, and it doesn't want to start. No, I do apologize. It doesn't want to start. So it's this. Oh, here we are. We got it. So here we go. Now, if you watch this area here, this is 3738, and that's the one that is absolutely firing off all these flares. You can see it just flash all the time. Now, you'll also see again the Earth eclipse the sun. You'll see a quick flare goes, and again as you can see 373 whatever it was 3738 is actually firing off the good ones. I'll just run that again because you can see all these flares, and as I said, over the week it's given us of the flares we had what was it, 124. I should think well over 100 of them have all come from that one sunspot active region there. So I do apologize not having the usual amount of videos. But that's it. We've got nothing really to speak of. We've got these regions. As I said, some of them are gaining in complexity. There is a large up in the top there. You can see this dark area. That is a coronal hole. It will be coming into Earth direction, but most of it will be going north. But it could give us some enhanced winds, which will give us possibly some minor auroras up in the Arctic Circle. So that's all I've got this week. I do apologise again for the crappy presentation, but unfortunately that's the way the cookie crumbles. So if I just come back to here, and then back to here. So there we go.
That's it.
So yeah, there's this. Just keep your eyes open, keep your ears to the ground for your alerts, because there's still plenty of time for things to happen. It we may still get action say, but one thing that has been very noticeable, if you remember when I was talking at the beginning of the month, that we had a slight decline in the sunspots count. It is increased, and it's increased quite a bit. Whether or not at the end of the month that means we will have another peak up, we will have to wait and see, because there's still plenty of time for everything to change. So that's it. That's it. So hope you enjoyed what you saw. Hopefully next week I'll know how to work this machine properly. So yeah. So and hopefully people will be back and we'll be able to give you. It's a sad that Roger was unable to help it to get on this week. So, but we'll hold back his the images from the gallery for next week, and we will hopefully get everything back and running. Get rid of some of these gremlins that we keep suffering for some unknown reason just recently, but we will get to that. So anyway, anything else, chaps, before we go? Anything you need to say? Any promotions? Or
I just want to say, don't feed the gremlins after midnight. That's all I'm going to say.
No, and don't get them wet. Don't get them wet. So
I know. I'm just thinking, as Stuart says, thank you. Great show once again.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. I do apologise for the amateurish style that I've run it, but yeah, I hope you've learned something and you found it enjoyable.
Yeah, the thing is, Daz, we've done it.
Yeah, we've done it. So anyway, thank you again, everybody. It was lovely seeing you all in the chat and sticking with us. So goodbye, Ian, Stuart, Gaz, Amber, and everybody else who's in the chat, and we will hopefully see you again next week. And have a good week, everybody. Keep looking up, and clear skies, everybody. So bye for now. All the best.
Bye then. Bye.
Thank you.